appreciate everybody coming. So we're all here for how to learn how to fill out your taxes, right? Yeah, right. I'm in charge of that. We're in big trouble. So. All right, so good to see some familiar faces, and looks like we got some new folks, so thanks for coming. Just curious, how many people, this is their first time here? About half of you. All right, excellent, cool. Yeah, so this is a What's Cooking program. We started this a couple of years ago at Mid-County before the pandemic and all that good stuff happened. So we wanted to try and get it fired back up and see what we could do, so we're doing it. So it's great. It's been a great response, so thank you for coming. You got a few sheets of paper in front of you. There's one that's got, if you couldn't tell, we're going to work on pies today. So that's your recipe book. There's also a trifold brochure that's in front of you that's got the March 2023 library programs for the entire library system. It is color-coded. Port Charlotte's in blue, Englewood's in orange, and Punta Gorda is in red. And it's divided by, if you are interested in adult programs maybe for your kids, your teens, it's all in there. And there's also all ages. The other one that you have is the upcoming flyer for, we've been already kind of brainstorming what we want to do for future What's Cooking events. So as you can see on there, we're going to be doing desserts next month. Then we're going to be doing brunch. You guys better bring your stretchy pants for that one, I think, because that's going to be interesting. Bread will be in June, and then since July is National Ice Cream Month, we're going to be actually making homemade ice cream. I didn't get this way from eating lettuce. That's what I tell people. So that's kind of what we got on the docket. Just as a couple quick questions we had, we're just trying to find from you guys, how many folks are here full time? About half of you? Okay. How many of you would be interested in coming up and presenting something, showing us anything? Okay.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Yeah, we got to work on that one. No, that's all right. Yeah, so that is an option. So if any of you, maybe you make the best, I don't know, lasagna or something, and you want to come up and say this was your grandmother's recipe and whatever, then trust me, we can make it happen. So we are trying to make it a community-involved program. So, all right, cool. So we just kind of were trying to gauge as we were going, you know, like during the summer, how's it going to be? Are we going to get a lot of folks? That kind of thing. So good. By the way, on the back of your pie booklet, there is the Friends of the Port Charlotte Library. Without them, we cannot do these programs. And Punta Gorda has a Friends, and Englewood has a Friends. So the Friends of the Port Charlotte Library are the ones that are helping us put on these programs, not just this one, but all for the youth and teen and everything else. So by supporting them, you support the library. A lot of people say, how can we help you? And we always tell them, go over and talk to the Friends at the library. So buy some books, sign up. I mean, it looks like their dues are $5 a year. I mean, it's the best deal in town. So I think we can afford that, right? So, all right. So yeah, so we definitely appreciate them helping us with everything that we need. So the plan of attack, as I understand it, we're doing sweet and savory pies. I'll be doing the sweet stuff. Suzanne's going to be doing the savory. She's got some stuff in the oven. I've got something we've got to get in the fridge so it has time to set up. So we're actually going to do that first. Then she's going to do her thing. Then we're going to circle back around. I'm going to show you how to make pie dough from scratch and what happens when it doesn't work out at midnight. And then we'll talk about slab pies. We also brought some books over here if anybody's interested. We've got the book on pie from Aaron McDowell. It's a really great one. I've actually hoarded these for a couple of weeks because I've been reading them. And there's actually one over here for slab pies. And this one's Martha Stewart's fruit desserts. So it's got pies in there, so if that interests you. So you're more than welcome to check those out. Again, whichever branch you go to, see what they've got. Everybody's got a pretty good cookbook selection. Okay, so does that sound like a plan? How would that work for you?
Yep.
Okay. So we're actually, in your book, it's Spencer's Cream Slab Pie is the one we're going to be working on. So, Now, obviously you've got like your fruit pies and you got your cream pies. I like cream pies too. The problem I have is trying to blind bake your shells sometimes can be a little wonky. This is what happened last night. I was not happy with it. You're more than welcome to come up and look at it, but it slipped down even though we had weighted it and all this other stuff. So we probably could use it, but I wasn't going to serve that to you guys. So I made a little trip to Walmart. I hate to say it, but I bowed down and bought this, okay?
That's hard
She
for
told
you.
me about it. I
That's
was
hard
like-
for you, I know.
Yeah, this is tough because I'm just, this is again my, yeah. So I was just like, all right, let's give it. Yeah, class is over now. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Go to the Friends of the Library. Yeah. So we just decided let's give this a shot. So here is the one that's pre-made that we've got, and we laid it all out. These sheet pans that we're using are half sheet pans. We're going to talk more about this later. As you can see, they're well loved. So this is the size that we're using. Something that I like to do with this, and these are considered slab pies. I'm sure everybody's had, your regular pies before. So I like to line them with parchment paper, because then when you get to wherever you're going, you just pick the whole thing up, and everybody says, oh, it's hard to get the first piece out, right? Not with this. You just pick the whole thing up, take a knife, start going at it, and it's good to go. So cream pies are very popular. I always think about going to the diner and used to seeing them pies go around in the case. So, believe it or not, my wife and I, at one point, we actually were running a bakery, and one of the things we used to make a lot of was pastry cream. I said, there's got to be a way around this, so we don't have to because that's eggs, sugar, cream, all that stuff. It's got to be tempered. So we actually came up with a little shortcut, since this is now where we're at. But even when we had the bakery, we were doing, like, for cream puffs, eclairs, everybody, we'd give them, they go, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. I said, so here's the trick, and we're going to do this. This is why we got to get this done first. Today we're going to use chocolate fudge pudding. For when we did the eclairs and stuff like that, we used the French vanilla. On the box, it will tell you add 2 cups of milk. Milk is for amateurs. We're going to go full tilt, okay?
So what is that?
So we're going to use heavy whipping cream. Regular milk is about 3% fat. This is like 36. So what we've done is we've already put 4 packages in here. We got 2 quarts of heavy cream. If anybody's on cholesterol meds, now would be a great time to take one. So, what could go wrong? So this is great now for example, if you had somebody coming over like at the last minute, you're like, oh geez, what am I going to serve these folks? If you got some pudding, a couple boxes of pudding in the fridge or in the pantry, if you got regular milk, obviously use it. But if some people do keep cream, I like cold brew in the morning. So I used to cut my cold brew with heavy cream. Doctor said, you got to stop that. So we're just going to give this a good whiskey. And basically we're just going to pour this in here and get it in the fridge and let it set up. So then by the time Suzanne's going to show us what she's got going. You have a question?
Of course.
Yeah.
What are the amounts? You just threw in 2 quarts, and how many?
It calls 1 box as 2 cups. So since I'm doing 4 boxes, that's...
You mean for the filling? Hello. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically 2 boxes is 1 quart container. At first it's like, this is never going to work. And then you keep stirring and stirring. See, so you're going to burn the calories you're going to eat by doing this. You could. I wouldn't get too crazy because it is cream. So
What happens?
you could effectively, if you overbeat it, it might possibly go towards butter. Chocolate butter? But look, I mean, you can see we just been stirring here for what, maybe a minute?
Yeah,
Look how it's turned, it's. If it doesn't work out, we'll blame it on Jell-O and Walmart. How's that? It's getting thicker.
Scientifically, what actually happens to make it set up?
For this? So what's in, the question was, you know, what makes it thicken instantly? If you read the box, I think it's the first ingredient's called modified cornstarch. So basically the
Usually cornstarch you have to cook.
it's been modified to work in this application. Yeah, if it was regular cornstarch, which we're going to talk about later,
Or just,
that's what I use in the pie to thicken it. So that is, but that's regular cornstarch.
okay,
So this is getting to be like concrete now.
so you don't have to scoop it out instead of pouring it.
That's all right. We got a big budget for this show, so we're going to get another whisk.
It's called an infinite
All right, let's put that there. We're going to change out for a whisk. We're just going to kind of fold this together. And again, if you got a favorite flavor, if you want pistachio pie, get the pistachio pudding. Whatever you're feeling that day. I think Reese's even makes like a peanut butter something mix. You could use that. So literally, we actually made this within an hour.
Yeah.
Because that, you know, we decided not to use that. This could actually almost be served right now. So wait till you guys see what we're going to do to it after this. Do you want to go ahead and do your thing while I'm
Yes.
scooping?
Yes. So I have 2 pies in the oven that are just about ready to come out, and one is a taco pie, and the other is a chicken pot pie. Spencer tends to do things homemade. I am queen of shortcuts. I like to cook, but I don't have as much time as I would always want to do, so I tend to find the easy shortcuts that work best for me. So let's start with chicken pot pie. Trusty Walmart pie crust. So super simple. This one, instead of the round tin, I have in a big sheet because I knew there were 20 or so people coming, so I made it a little bit bigger. So I used 2 boxes for this. So I just doubled my recipe basically. So the pie crust, I put that because have you ever had a pie where the bottom is soggy? So I just put the bottom pie crust in there and I put it in the oven at 350 for about 5 to 10 minutes just to get it, give it a little bit so it's not going to be soggy and mushy because I'm going to put in all my vegetables and my chicken. After that, while that's in the oven, again, queen of shortcuts, I take my mixed vegetables, potatoes, and a can of green beans, throw them in a pot on the stove. You can use rotisserie chicken. If you have chicken breast you want to shred. I started this with leftover turkey because at Thanksgiving when you're like, I can't eat another turkey sandwich. What can I do with it? And so that's what I would do. So just dice up and I throw that in the pot on the stove, heat it up. I might throw in a little flour if it needs to thicken a little bit. Then I put it in my shell, put the top on, cut the little tops on it, little X, and just so it vents out. And I think we're about ready. So voila. I think I might need a few minutes more, but I'm gonna leave it in there just a few minutes more. And it should come out, and like I said, this is a double batch because I wanted to have enough for everybody to try. So super simple, but I'm gonna leave it in there so it gets a little browner on the top. But that's what I do with that one. I am going to take the taco one out because that does look ready. Leave that in there. So the taco one, even a different crust, something even simpler, crescent rolls. So again, I usually would do it in the round one, and you would just put the points in the middle so they kind of come out and you have your pie crust on the edge. But I doubled this recipe as well, and I just put it in the 9x13 and covered the bottom. Then I take my ground, you can, if it's ground beef, if you want ground turkey, whatever you want to use, cook that up with onions, and then you mix in a can of refried beans and your taco seasoning. So cooked my meat, drained off the fat, the grease, I throw in a little onions if you like to do green chilies, if you like whatever you want in your meat, you know, whatever you're interested in. I've done it with black beans. My husband's not a fan of black beans, so that's why we tried the refried beans. I got the stamp of approval on that, so that worked. So we use those, and then taco seasoning to taste, and you can tell we are big, you know, Mexican food, so don't have the little packets, we just have the big old container. So I, you know, mix that all together, then I put that into the pie shell. I did throw in, I've added salsa. I threw in like a half a cup of salsa, or half a jar, whatever, and then mix that in with my meat mixture. And then all the top are my tortilla chips, crumbled up tortilla chips and cheese. And then all you have to do is add whatever you want on top. Lettuce, tomatoes, sour cream, more salsa, you know, guacamole, black olives, whatever it is that you like, and it's just a different version of tacos, you know, something a little bit different. So, like I said, that's a staple in our family. So that's, like I said, I try to make it as easy. Like I said, I'm not as sweet as Spencer. He's way more into that, but I look for my shortcuts and whatever I can, you know, use for that. And it's really, adapt it to what your family likes, what you like. You know, I like hot salsa, but I knew not everybody's favorite. So if you like mild, I got medium, you know, for tasting today. But it is just a matter of what you guys like. I think that's the key thing. Making it your own so that you want to like it, your family wants to eat it, because. And it is quick and easy. That's the key thing. Yes?
So one of those 8-ounce crescent rolls was enough to cover this size?
No, this one is 2. I doubled that. But if it's in the pie pan, it's just the one. Yes. But I doubled both of these recipes today that are in there because I was making a bigger batch for everybody. So, but yes. Yeah.
Have you ever thought of trying, what I like about this is that it's the same old thing, but it's presented differently, which makes it fun and something fresh for, you know. family.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a question. Have you ever thought about crumbling the tortilla chips on the bottom? And instead of using the crescent rolls,
Having that as your base.
using that as a base for those who might be gluten-free?
That's a good idea. I have not.
I'm just, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
it looks like it really sticks together well on top.
Yeah, because that's just the cheese and the tortilla chips.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that would be a great idea. I would definitely experiment with
I'm
that.
gonna try that.
Try that
I will
because that's
report fully.
okay. I appreciate that. I want a full report back on that because I think you're right. I mean, with the gluten, you know, everybody's with the, you know, the food allergies and what,
Yes.
you know, different people can handle. That's definitely something, an option. I think that's a great idea. I'm going to try that myself because I like tortilla chips.
What size can is that?
This one is a 9x13.
Okay, thanks.
So that was, yeah.
Okay. And that would take 2.
2 crescent rolls, and then I just did 2 pounds of you know, the ground beef,
Okay. So you double.
and I doubled. So I did a whole can of refried beans. I didn't double my salsa, I just did a half cup in that. But I just, did that to taste, and it just, and what was nice is I put that together last night. I just did the crescent rolls and then did my meat mixture and put it in the fridge. And then I put the tortilla chips and cheese on it here and baked it here.
Did you put the meat mixture in and put it on the fridge, or did you keep that separate?
I put it in on the crescent roll and just let it, so it just kind of basically sat overnight. So because I, having to work this morning, I was like, let me do one ahead of time, so it was super simple. But yeah, so I just doubled that one, and it was, and like I said, you cut up, and I even, like I said, I cheated and brought the shredded lettuce instead of cutting that at home as well, so. Any other questions on these? Yes?
I was just wondering, on the savory part, do you ever put like an egg wash before you do the pre-baking of the bottom?
I have not, but that's a great idea.
Because that's what I was
Yeah.
used to for quiche.
Yeah, for a quiche, definitely.
Wait, say that again?
An egg wash on top of of the bottom, you're talking the bottom of the, of this, on the, yeah, okay, on the bottom of the,
It might help keep the ingredients from, even more.
that from, that would be good from, getting so moist. That's a good idea. No, I haven't. Thank you for that tip. I appreciate that. Anything else? Spencer, I'm turning it back over to you.
My turn?
It is your turn.
All right, so now we'll go back to the paper, now that we kind of got everything in motion, and just kind of walk you through what we put together here for you. So on the inside cover, there's a list of some tools. If you're going to get into pie making or pastry making, anything like that, these are just some things that I've worked with that I think really helps. I remember my grandmother, when she made pastry or pie dough, she'd either rub it with her fingers or take the two knives. That's another traditional way. Then I found this thing, and I bought this, I don't know, 15 years ago when they were like $3 or $4. I looked this up on Amazon, they're now like $8.97. You probably get them a little cheaper at Walmart. But honestly, for me, this makes it easy to get the fat incorporated into the flour, and it'll last you forever. So that's an option. To me, using a rolling pin is kind of like buying a pair of shoes. Do you need narrow? Do you need extra wide shoes? So there's two different pins. This is the French rolling pin. This one's tapered on the ends, so when you're rolling, and that was kind of hard to see up here, but the ends do not sit flat, and that's on purpose, so when you're rolling something out, the edges don't become too thin. So that's why they're tapered. Now, a friend of mine said, can you use this thing? I bought it at one of those parties and I'll never use it. Well, first I was like, wow, it's very pink. I can do pink though, I can rock pink. So, this is a baker's pin. As you can see, it's not tapered, but this one's actually silicone. So for me, when I'm rolling a lot of this stuff out, this is more comfortable. Plus, it's kind of got more of an anti-stick. You don't need as much flour. And I'm going to show you how to roll out stuff so you don't need any flour and you'll never have any more problems. I know it's kind of a bold statement, but I'm going to show you how I found it works well. And then you guys can try it at home, see if it works for you. So anyway, this is called a sill pin if anybody's interested. I don't know if they make them anymore. If anybody's ever heard of the sill pats, they go on the bottom of the trays. They're like a silicone mat.
Yeah.
That's made by the same company. So if they don't make these anymore, you can just look up silicone baker's pin on Amazon, and I'm sure something will come up. The one that's quoted there is for wood. So whichever you like. And if I can only have like 2 or 3 tools in the kitchen for everything that I do, this would be one of them. There's a scale. So we can do a whole thing on flour sometimes if anybody's interested. So if I say we need 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of flour is going to be 100 grams of flour. If I give somebody a measuring cup and I said I need a cup of flour, every one of us is going to have a different amount. So if you ever made something, you're like, wow, that really worked out, I loved it, and then you go to make it a few, whatever, months later and you go, something ain't right. Maybe the flour was off, could be, it just depends. Baking is more of a science and formula. I think that's why my brain works better with that. My wife, she's in charge of the cooking. Because she'll open up the pot and throw some stuff in there. Oh, it needs a little this and taste, oh, it needs more. I'm like, well, how much you putting in there? She goes, that much. And the hair on my back of my neck just starts vibrating because it's like, no, I need to know how much. Which you'll see in all my recipes, we'll get to that. So really a scale if you're into baking at all. And this one's nice because it does have a removable, or not, like a front that does come out a little bit. So if you have a big bowl, you can still read it. This does ounces and grams. I work in grams. What's 10% of 100? 10. All right, if we have 3 cups and 2/3, what's 10% of that? You got to pull out your slide rule to figure that one out. So I'm like, no more. So I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. You were talking about soggy bottoms. On the bottom of that page, there's this thing called a baking steel. For years, we had what was called a baking stone or a pizza stone. A lot of people bought those, and you did your pizza in the oven on them. They worked great. There was an actual porous stone. Well, then this company decided, let's take a plate of steel and make it food grade. So they do come in different thicknesses. There's 1/4 inch. There might be one between that and 1/2 inch. I actually got the 1/2 inch one. It's 40 pounds. Just know that going in. So, you know, you can go to the gym and try to get it in the oven. The reason why I use that for these types of pies is I freeze these solid before I bake them on purpose, which we'll get to a little bit later. So it's all in this aluminum tray. So when I stick it in a 425 degree oven that's been preheating for 60 to 90 minutes with that plate in there, no more soggy bottom. So the top and the bottom's actually cooking together. And I don't care about the filling being cooked in the oven. So we'll get to that in a minute as well. All right, so that's kind of some of the tools that you can think about if this is something, plus you can use this for biscuits and things like that, so you're not just buying it for pies, or, you know, it could be, however you want to do it. Everything I've read, I've talked to different pastry chefs, and I said, okay, what's the deal about this flaky pie dough? And we all kind of wink, wink. If you read in any cookbooks, including these, they will tell you what happens is when you work butter into flour, and then when it gets hot, it's going to melt, and the steam from the butter is going to create all these layers. Well, yes, but not like layers. Has anybody eaten a croissant? Has anybody ever ate a Danish? Okay. Has anybody heard of laminate pastry? Yes. If you haven't, you're basically gonna get a crash course today on it. That's the secret, and that's what's on the next page. It says the real secret on how to get real flaky pie dough. I've tried to put some diagrams in here to kind of show you how this works. It's all in the folding. If anybody's a big biscuit maker, same thing. You want to fold your dough. And that's actually what's going to get the fat and the flour constantly layered, so then when you either bake it like this or you're going to make a biscuit, it will go like this. So if you've ever had trouble getting the layers, it may not be your fault by using different fats or butter or different kinds of butter or whatever. It's the layering process. So that's basically what a lot of the pastry chefs are doing. So you can read that at your leisure. All right, so while she's doing her thing, I think I'm just going to show you. Actually, let me talk about the tins first. As you can see, we've got a few people here, right? If I made one of these or two of these, try to split this, what, 25 ways? Here's your slice. You might as well be eating South Beach, right? So, but this, you know, if it's just to a couple of people or your family, this is perfectly fine. I like metal. And I kind of alluded to this already because I'm going to bake my pies, my fruit pies, let me clarify that, not the cream pies, but the fruit pies from Frozen. And when we get to this, I'll explain more about it. If you take a glass pan, and I've even seen it with Pyrex. I live 30 minutes away from Corning, New York, if anybody's familiar with Corning ware. That stuff is supposed to be endurable. I've seen it shatter, hit the oven. It's just can't take that, 30 degrees to 400 degrees shock. It just can't take it. So that's why I use metal. Now, if you get pre-made pies for like Thanksgiving, you can save these tins. You can see this one's been used a couple times. I had the great idea to make personal chicken pot pies a while ago, so this is gonna be a spin-off of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You could do it like this. So I went online and I got these little 5-inch jobbies. I made pie dough to fit this, filled them with a filling like what she was talking about, topped them, put them in the freezer. I did like 10 at a time. So I was like, oh, I want a chicken pot pie, take it out of the freezer, throw it in the oven. I got pot pie. And I did use rotisserie chicken as you were doing. So it's a
Yes.
great shortcut, why not? Then you can, of course, get these kind of pans that are a little bit more durable. I just worry about, your knives on these can be a little challenging. Now, if you're gonna have a function where you're gonna have a lot of folks like this, I think we get invited to barbecues just because they're like, oh, yeah, bring the pie. It's like, oh, sure, okay, yeah, no problem. You can get these at Sam's, or I'm sure BJ's has them. You can get them online or restaurant supply store. We do have a restaurant supply store. It's called the Paper Store. It's out at El Jabin, just before you go over the bridge. It used to be called ABC Restaurant Supply Store is what it used to be called, but they must have sold it and changed the name, but they've still got all their stuff in there, so that's good. If you want this kind of stuff, kind of a commercial level, and they will sell to the public, and their prices, I think, are very fair. This is what they call a half sheet pan. A full sheet pan is double the size. It will not physically fit in your oven. That's what the regular bakers use. So this is what they sell to us that will fit in our regular oven. It's called a half sheet pan. Then they sell this one, just to show you size comparison. I think they call this one a jelly roll pan. And if you want to go a little bit smaller, this is a quarter sheet pan. So if we actually take this, there, maybe that's better. So now you can see it's that. So again, you could actually use any of these to make pies, slab pies if you want, or you can use something like this. Suzanne and I were talking about earlier about how much to make and everything, and what we ended up finding out is we were getting hung up on the shape. She was like, well, a circle, it's got to be a circle, right? And I said, yeah, it could be a circle, but I said, well, maybe we could do them rectangle. She goes, oh, okay, and we're banging ideas off each other. And it's like, okay, well, that'll work. So we went with these. So you pick whichever pan you want to make. Obviously, if you got a bigger crowd, you want to make a bigger pie, make a slab pie. Question?
Can you bake on the piece of stone? Will you get the same effect as you get on the metal?
Oh, good question. It's in place of. Yes, so if you don't want to deal with a heavy baker's steel, that's something you can do. If you've got a couple of these, line them up together. You can even put them in upside down if you want to make your life a little easier, or if you do them right side up, I guess this would help cook as well. Preheat these in your oven. I've done that before. So will it get as hot as the steel? No. But will it work if you've already got it for a lot less money? Yes. So great question. The other thing is, if you're going to be doing a slab pie and you're wondering how wide to roll out your dough, so I'm real high tech. I took a piece of copy paper and I cut some strips and I taped them together. I lay it in the pan, like so. And I give myself some overlap. And then I go like this. I pull out a ruler, I measure this. I write it on a sheet of paper and go, okay, for the length, I need whatever this is, 19 inches. Okay, for the width, I need whatever it is. Does that make sense? And you can do that, like this is maybe a little bit deeper than this. So again, just take a piece of copy paper and put it in the crevice like this to make sure you're going up and down the hills and valleys here, and give yourself a little extra. And then you'll know exactly what size you need to roll out your circle or your rectangle to. Does that make sense? And just put it in some kind of database program. We can go over that another time if you guys want. Because I've got a recipe database I've been using for 20 years. And I could put cups and stuff in there and it automatically converts it to grams. It's beautiful. It makes life so much easier, in my opinion. All right, so that's the pans, and that's kind of the difference between a slab pie is normally thinner and square. So if you are team crust like I am, slab pie is great. If you're a team filling, obviously you're going to want something like this because you're going to get more filling. All right, so for this, what we're going to do is, actually, let me just go to where it says Spencer's Pie Dough. I should have put, that'll be the next page. For those of you that weren't here last time, what we are doing for anybody that wants to submit recipes, we're going to take all this and we're putting it into like a 2023 recipe book at the end of the year. We're going to comb bind them. So if you weren't here for when Willard did the healthy and affordable eating, he did rice and beans and some other stuff. That will probably be in there. I know last month we did the appetizers. We did Chex Mix and we did the veggie pizza and the meatballs and all that stuff. So that'll be in there. So at the end of the year, we'll have this nice little book that then you can have from this program. All right, so we're going to make some pie dough. I'm just going to get myself kind of set up here. All right. Now, I'm going to use the scale. By the way, these 6-quart containers are also great to store your flour and stuff in. I just take a piece of masking tape and put on top what it is. I make potato bread. That's another thing that, I make them into rolls and stuff. I'll be up front with you. I do not go and boil potatoes and go through all that business. This is where I shortcut. I use the instant potato flakes and mix it in with my flour. So, I'm going to turn the scale on. The bowl's already on there. It's going to read 0. I'm going to convert it to grams. So we're going to do a half recipe of what's on this page where it says 2.5 cups, and then in parentheses you'll see it says 350 grams. So we're going to do, what, 175? So I'm just going to take a spoon. We're going to put 175 grams of flour in here. Really try if you're into baking, get a scale. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. And just try it. I think, and plus there's a lot less mess. When I make like the potato bread, I put the mixing bowl right there, my KitchenAid mixing bowl. Right on here, I put the milk in. And I hit the tare button or 0 button. All right, now I'm going to put so much like avocado oil in it. Tare it, flour, tare it. I forget what else it takes. But I just keep building on it until finally when it's all together, I put the dough hook in it and I stick it in the mixer. What am I cleaning? I might clean a spoon. I'm going to clean the mixer bowl anyway. So that's it. I don't have a bunch of these floating around. I don't have cups all over the place. I don't have flour in my face. Well, unless I turn this on real fast. Be like Mrs. Doubtfire, right? Okay, so we're done with this for now. I'm going to go ahead and use some of the spoons and stuff for the really small stuff. Now here's another secret ingredient that we're going to get to here in a minute. So 1 tablespoon of sugar, we're going to call it like 1.5 teaspoons. This is going to be sacrificial dough anyway. Nobody's going to eat this. I'm just basically doing it to show. So I'm not too worried about it. Oh, no, that was another question I was going to ask in the beginning. I forgot to ask. Would anybody like to do like hands-on demonstrations as we're doing this stuff? So like if we're going to do, like for example, we're doing pie dough. If we were able to say so anybody that wanted to have a chance to try it, they could try it. Would anybody be interested in that? A couple of you? All right.
Making it?
Try making it here. Yeah? Okay, handful of you? All right, we were talking about that, so I said, let's ask. You don't know if you don't ask, right? So again, you can use whatever salt you got floating around. Plain old. Now the sugar that's in here is not to sweeten it. Right. Caramelize. So by putting a little bit of sugar in here, it's going to help make it get darker. Here's the other secret when I was talking to different pastry chefs. Baking powder. You'll rarely see this in any modern recipe. So what does this do, right? It gives us lift. What are we trying to do? Get lift. Okay, so we would put it now with what the recipe that we're referencing with the 350 grams of flour, this will make a double 9-inch one of these. So A top and enough for a top and a bottom, or two, if you want to do 2 cream pies, 2 bottoms. If you're going to do an apple pie and you want a top, then you would do a bottom and it would be enough for a bottom and a top. Okay, so we're going to throw our baking powder in. There was a question before you guys got here about baking powder. I use this one specifically. They're not paying us to say this. This is Argo. I got it at Publix. The reason why I use this particular brand is the agent that's in this that makes it go gives you 30% lift in the bowl. It gives you 70% lift in the oven. So for something like this that I'm going to freeze, and I know that it's basically going to spend 2 hours in the oven, I want it to work mostly in there. Does that make sense? So again, this is Argo. You can get it at Publix. And if you say, oh yeah, I got baking powder, you know, it's like from 1973 and it's way in the back of the cupboard, it's probably no good. You might want to get another batch of it. It's not really expensive. We can take up a collection if we need to. Okay, now here's the other thing. First of all, let's give that a whiskey whisk. So my poor family, leading up to this, I had this idea that I needed to rewrite some recipes. So I tried pie crust with all butter. Then I tried one with shortening and butter. Then I tried another one with lard and butter. Would you like to guess which one every time everybody chose? Lard. Yes, indeed. So, you can get this at Walmart. Publix does not carry it for some reason. So, but this is, again, now everybody, because it's funny when I'm talking to people, are like, oh, my thing's going to taste like bacon. First of all, bacon and pie does not sound bad. I'm just, you know, all right, so let's see, that's going to be 50, I'll call it 60-ish. Okay. Now, so no, this does not have any smell. You're more than welcome to check it out and see. It's pure white. It looks like shortening. The thing with shortening I found is when I've used it, it makes your baked goods really wet. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but after it's baked, it's just not crispy. So I don't know if it's something to do with what they're using, but with the lard, oh, I got to tell you this. All right, where are we at here? We're going to put in, yeah, put a little bit more in. I'm not too worried about getting this into like a uniform size here. All right, we're going to call that good, because again, this is just more for demonstration. So I've been using lard for years. It's great. So I had some left over. I said, what takes shortening? Because my mother, she was born in 1950. She grew up the Crisco era. Her big thing is making cookies, chocolate chip cookies. Awesome. I said, what if I take my chocolate chip cookie recipe, take half the butter out and put lard in? I took them to work. I didn't tell you guys what was in them.
Those were phenomenal.
They were gone in an hour.
They were.
And so, all right, so basically we're taking our pastry cutter and we're just going to, now with you'll read in the recipe books, if you've ever done this, they'll say it needs to be the size of peas. Just work the shortening in, or the lard in until it's about peas. The butter is the one I'm more worried about, because that is what's going to give us the sheets when we go to roll it, is this will. And this is the lard, and exactly what we're doing, this is scaled up to make this size. So you guys will get a chance to taste it here in a little bit.
So they both gotta be cold.
Yes, cold out of the fridge. Believe it or not, I tried freezing Crisco for shortening. I could never get that stuff to freeze hard enough either. That was the other thing. I tried. I'm like, I don't know what's in this stuff, but that won't even freeze. I could use that up north to grease the axle joints on the car in the middle of winter and still work, you know? So, Okay, so we're just going round and around the bowl. This is how I do it. It's, you find whatever works for you, right? We're not doing anything rocket science yet. A lot of people seem to be scared of pie dough for some reason. Pastry can sense fear. You got to tell it who's boss. Okay, so we're going to call that good. Oh, I already brought it out. Okay. So we're doing a half batch. So we've got this butter. A lot of folks will make it small pieces. Look how big of a chunk that is. I don't know if you guys can see it in the back. I took a half a stick, cut it straight down, and cut it like twice across. And I've got these big size, they're about the size of almonds, if that's a good size. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. So I'm just going to throw these in here. Well, we haven't done anything too hard yet. Don't be afraid to mix this around with your hands. Don't worry, you guys aren't going to eat this. My hands are clean. I just licked them, I know. All right, so I'm just going to go like this a couple of times. I'm about done. What was that, two or three turns? So now what I'm going to do is, we haven't done anything too hard yet, right? Wow, that was a sign of confidence right there. All right. So I'm just going to take these pieces, and you can see how kind of big they are. If they're really, really big, I'm just going to try and maybe make them a little bit smaller. Overall, though, you can see how they're still pretty chunky, right? Okay. That's good. We're going to leave it. Ice water, like she was saying, does everything have to be cold or has to be cold? Yes. Now, in here, it talks about 12 tablespoons of water, so we're going to go roughly for 6, but here's the other thing. Let me just kind of do this while we're talking, because you don't want your butter or your lard to get warm. You want to keep everything as cold. There's actually ice in this cup with the water to keep it really cold. This is the best flour I have found for general baking, is Gold Medal. I usually get the bleached, but they were out of it. So we got the unbleached. This will work just fine. I've tried White Lily and King Arthur. The blue and white bag is great for bread, terrible for this kind of stuff because it's got a lot of gluten in it. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So now, I'm not going to stir this. We're going to fold it. Why are we doing it that way? This way we're not developing any gluten unless we have to, and we will be in a minute. So I'm just kind of folding this over onto itself. Does everybody kind of see that? Yeah. Okay. So you look at it and you go, because everybody gets freaked out about the water. Too much water. They say, oh, put too much water and it's going to toughen your crust. They're not using lard. They're using that Crisco stuff probably. All right, so now we'll put another couple of tablespoons. And here's the thing, this whole deal about, oh, well, it was humid out, so you're going to need less water. It's dry out. You're going to need, no, that has nothing to do with it. Again, I went to the pastry chefs and I said, hey, what is the deal with this? And they said, yeah, that's a bunch of baloney. They said it has to do with how the mill actually mills the flour and is dealing with a protein. Like, this is like 10% protein. King Arthur, they're around 12. So their stuff is going to take more water because it's got more protein in it. It has nothing to do with, I mean, we're in an air-conditioned space right now. I would say it's roughly, what, 75 in here? If you go home in your air-conditioned house, it should be okay. So again, I'm just kind of folding this until we're going to give it the old squeeze test, which I think, how many people have made pie dough by hand? Oh, half of you, okay. You guys live to tell the tale, right? You went to Crisco, people. Did they give you the secret?
Exactly like your recipe, except of cold water, they use cold milk in the past.
Now, that is a good point. I did start playing with French pastry, which adds an egg and milk in place of the water. And that does make it more, very tender. But I found I couldn't get the crispness out of it because of the fat in the milk. But that's me, or the fat in the egg yolk. try it. So yeah, if you guys want to add an egg and then replace the water with milk, try it and see if you like it. Okay, so this looks like a lovely shaggy mass we got going here. I still got my little chunks of butter. And here is basically what we got. It doesn't really look like anything. It's kind of together, but it's kind of not. So if I take some, it's still together, right? Okay. This is a great thing to do if, you know, you had a bad day. Piece of parchment paper. Because I'd love to have this counter at home, but I don't have one of these at home. So, I know it's kind of hard to see, but basically it's in a rectangle-ish mass, okay? Here's the secret of the flaky pie dough. You don't want to blink because you're going to miss it. You ready?
Yeah.
We're going to take it and we're going to start.
Well, I never did it that way.
All right, now we're just, the ends need a little help. So I'm just going to kind of bring those in. Okay, now it's not really holding together yet. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. We're actually making croissants. This is a croissant technique. So I'm going to take my paper. And it still looks a little, you know, you might think, wow, there's not enough water in this. You start adding water. Take your paper, fold it, pick whichever pin you like. Give it a little. This is one time I take the old ring off. I don't know if I can hold this up, but we'll try. We're going to make a mess. You guys see the butter streaks in there? Okay, so we're going the right direction, right? We're getting this streaky butter. Now, here we go. Back to page 2 in your book. Business letter fold. Here we go. Fold.
And do you know that's
Fold.
called a book turn?
It is. Yeah, book, and then there's double book, and yes.
And when you make croissants, you mark it with one thumb tip.
Right.
Put it in with one, and the next time you do two.
To keep track of how many you've done.
Well,
So, we're going to do this again. We're just rolling this out. We haven't done anything hard, right? I mean, this isn't like rocket science. Oh, look, it's starting to come together now. See how it's even sticking to the paper? All right, now at this point, I could say, you know what? I think it needs to be a little bit longer. This is why we left the butter so big, because now it's going to start to sheet itself out. So now, and plus you notice it's not sticking to the parchment paper. Try doing this on the counter without anything. I'll be over for drinks later. Okay. So now you can kind of see what's happening. Can you guys see that from there? How it's layered? When you have it all spread out and you fold it onto itself, turn it like this. So now you're going to be rolling it again. We'll do one more turn just for the heck of it. Because again, this is just for demo. This is exactly how this was done and this was done. And I think that's what kind of got me in trouble on this one for the blind bake. Because this stuff wants to puff and give you nice flaky crust. That's the whole technique. Now at this point, you can kind of pull it back together. If you're doing a square pie, you're set to go. It's already in the right shape. So the answer is just do square pies. Forget the circle. No, just kidding. All right, so we're going to get it kind of to a rectangle or circular shape for this. I would only do it 4 or 5 times because this is loaded with butter and the other good stuff. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break here for a minute. We'll see what Suzanne needs. I'm going to throw this in the fridge just to give it a few minutes. And then we're going to come back. I'm going to show you how I roll it out so it's not a nightmare. Do you have anything that you need? Or?
Is it a good time for them to come and get,
Yeah, let's do that. And then that way you guys
and
can
get
be eating and
samples of
stuff.
everything or anything that they want and then go with that?
Yeah, we'll come back with this at the end. Okay.
The one thing I did forget to mention with the chicken pot pie, my husband prefers gravy on his, so I just buy again, I'm super simple. So, and I just tried, like this one just happened to be, and I just heat up the gravy, and then he likes that because it adds a little bit more moisture to it. So that's what's here if you want that.
All right, guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start rolling into I'm going to show you how to do the rolling, and we'll talk about the apple pie. So then while you guys are finishing up eating, and then by the time it will be time to ready to have dessert. So there you go. It's not a bad deal. We had a lot of great questions too, with people are coming up and asking, so that's great. If you have questions about something specific, please ask. We gotten to talk about flour. So just a couple of notes on the flour. King Arthur Flour Company is the oldest flour company in America. They do not use this stuff called Brahminate to make their flour white. It is naturally aged. That is one of their differences. A company like Gold Medal, which is I think part of General Mills, they use an agent to make it turn white faster. So that's something to think about if you want to use that or not. Again, about the protein. Again, I love King Arthur bread flour when I make my bread because it just gives me so much structure. I don't have to worry about any problems, meaning, right, collapsing, things like that, because it does have a lot of protein in it. Now there's also another brand of flour that you can get here in the South. It's called White Lily. A lot of people are, like that for biscuits and things. I thought, you know what, I'm going to make pie dough out of White Lily. This is going to be the best pie dough I've ever made. Not enough protein, it wouldn't hold together. I went to roll it out and it was a mess. I said, what is going on? This has never given me this kind of problem before. It was a White Lily. Another little ingredient we'll talk about real quick is there's different butters. I usually get whatever's on sale. Just know that your Walmart's, your Publix brand, that kind of stuff is going to have about 20% water in it. Where like this is Challenge butter. There's also a French butter, I think it's called like President or something like that. It comes in a nice little foil cube, and there's this. Actually, we had some of the Kerrygold in the fridge, so I said I'm just going to use that because I had it. So that's a little bit higher butter fat than your Walmart and Publix variety. So, but I'm not telling you to go out and blow a lot of money on butter. Another little thing is that lard is half the price of a pound of butter. So if you're trying to stretch your dollar with your pastry making, that might think about splitting it in half. Because let's say a pound of butter is roughly $6 a pound, depending upon what you buy. That tub of lard we were just using, I think it was like right around $3.50. So you can stretch your dollar.
Even out, so just half and half?
That's traditionally what I use. Somebody was coming up and asking about cookies. If you make a traditional all butter cookie or all Crisco cookie and you want to try, playing with something different, put in half butter, half lard and see what happens. Because I tried it just for the heck of it, and I'll tell you, I was just like, holy cow. I even had a staff member come up to me, she said, now I know you did this. You browned your butter before you put it in there, didn't you? And I said, no. I said, is there something wrong? She said, oh no, it's very tasty, but she says, I think you browned the butter. I said, no, I used lard. She goes, oh, that's it. So that's where that, not savory, but that's where that, different taste comes from. Okay, so to roll out your pie dough, and I've done it a million different ways. I'm sure everybody's done this before. You can throw flour down on the counter, start going at it, and then you got the choice of how you're going to get it up off the counter to get it into this or that. If you're dealing with one of these slab pies, call your neighbor over or your significant other because it's easier with two people. I was yelling from the kitchen, honey, can you come help me? I need, because this, and trying to get it in the pan. So, this is what I've done. And again, you play with them all, see which one works for you. This should really be in there for at least an hour. You could even do this ahead. That's the nice thing about this. You can make this a couple days ahead. I did not make this pie all at once. There is no way I could do that. Working at the library 40 hours a week, not going to happen. So I actually took 3 days and made this. So how in the world do you do that? Well, day one, I made the dough. That was easy enough. That only took maybe an hour or so. Second day, I made the filling, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Third day, I baked it. Once it's frozen like this, by the way, I've done cherry, I've done blueberry, this is apple. They all can be done the same way. All right, so we've got our dough. I'm going to sandwich it between plastic wrap. This might seem like a lot of fiddling, but once you kind of get it together, nothing hard yet, right? Piece of plastic on the bottom, plastic on the top. Okay. Take whatever rolling pin you like. You're going to go like this. You're not going to go like this. You're not going to go like this. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, I did not go all the way to the edges, so let me, you see? Oh, by the way, do you notice? It's sticking to the plastic. This is a great thing. You're going to see why in a minute. So we just went like this. I'm going to turn the dough 90 degrees. Now we're going to go back and forth again. If you can go back and forth like this, you got it made. Now eventually what's going to happen, here's where we're at. It's not going to go anymore. You're going to think it's broken. The plastic is hanging onto it. We need to release the plastic, so all you do is you peel this back. I don't know if you guys in the back can see that or not. All we're doing is pulling the plastic back on both sides. So far, so good. If you need to, pull your plastic out a little bit. After doing this ginormous thing, this is made in the shade up here. If you wear rings, I highly recommend you take them off. I think it's just easier on your fingers. Then you get out your pie plane and you go, oh, well, maybe it needs a little help. Now, here's the other thing. Maybe you're not a fast roller. And this is because you do not want the butter to melt here. So you're like, uh-oh, it's getting really sticky and getting nasty to work with. Throw it in there, pull it, wait, give it 10 minutes, pull it back out. Peel the plastic. Again, I would try, say I've tried rolling around the pin and all this other stuff. Now, another thing you can do with your counters at home, especially if you're down here in Florida in the middle of summer, and you want to make pie like this. Anybody know like those lunch cold packs you can put in your lunches? Put them in this. Whether you're making a circle or square, ahead of time, put this whole thing in the freezer. Now, if you're running into trouble and you need to get this done, this thing is cold. It will chill this on your counter. Give it a minute or two, pick it up, set that off to the side. Now, see, I almost did it. I even got to tell myself. And we're just doing this one fast. Now, it might be hard to see, but those big hunks of butter in there are now sheets, real thin sheets. That's close. I could live with that. Question?
In the recipe, when it says chill for 1 hour,
Yep.
did you put it in the freezer or in the fridge?
Generally the fridge. But you know what? There's this thing called life. If you need it faster, throw it in the freezer. Okay, this is actually getting warm, so I should probably put it in the fridge, but we're not going to eat this. This is just for demo. So what I would do is take your pan, spray it with nonstick spray. Another little trick I learned, because you want the pie to actually come out. This is telling me it wants to be cold, and it's starting to get cranky. But you know what? We're going to go with it because this is just a demo. So you've sprayed your pan. We got to get it from here into here. Remember, this sticks. So you're going to take this. You don't want to stretch it. You just want to pick it up and kind of nudge it in the corners. You guys see? Now, I would put this in the fridge. and, really chill it. But again, we're trying to hurry this up. So we're gonna hope and pray I can get this plastic off of here.
With chilling it, make it easier to get plastic.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not happy with me right now. Plus, we're kind of speeding this up, so. Then you would trim your edges, flute it, be done. Look at how much mess we got on the counter. None. Okay, now. Okay, so that's done. Now, back to the filling. I mentioned, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys heard me say, I don't care about the filling when I go to bake it. Why? So I cook all the fillings ahead of time, if it's a fruit pie. So for the apples, if we go back to our instructions where it says Spencer's slab apple pie, I should have put page numbers on there. That was my fault. Once you get to where it says Spencer's slab apple pie, do you see where it says for the dough, the egg wash, and for finishing? Then on the other side it says for the filling. What's the ingredient?
10 pounds of apples.
That is not a misprint. So I went to Sam's and I bought 2 5-pound bags of Fuji apples to make this.
Are they cooked down?
Right. So a couple things. Fuji is already a sweet apple. A lot of people like Granny Smith. That's fine. You roll with whatever apple you like. But I've found with our family, we just did not like them. So with Fiji, it's a sweeter apple, which means I don't need a lot of extra sugar. So if you've got somebody in your house that might have a dietary restriction, then you could do almost a no sugar added apple pie, which you'll see in some restaurants. So that's a way you can maybe have a little something without driving the sugar up through the roof. The Fuji apples will hold their shape after cooking and baking. They don't turn to mush. So that's why I use those apples. Plus they're reasonably priced. Honeycrisp is another great apple, but it's expensive. So I stick with the Fujis. So there's some brown sugar in there, and you can see, and some plain old granulated sugar. Cinnamon, it's apple pie. My favorite spice is nutmeg, so I throw a little nutmeg in there. If you got something you like, maybe you like apple pie spice or allspice or something like that, figure it out, go nuts. A little bit of salt. Then we got 4 tablespoons of cornstarch. So what we use at the house is we have an 8-quart cast iron enameled Dutch oven. So we stick it on the stove. All 10 pounds fits pretty much in there. I do. I peel and core them, and then I slice them. So this is going to be, question?
How many apples would you use for that round?
For the round one?
The 9-inch?
I would use, for this size, I would probably use 5 pounds. Yeah. Because here's the thing, and what she was talking about up here, you guys may not have heard it. Once everything's in the pot and you start cooking it, the water's going to evaporate and it's going to cook down. So when I started with this mounded pot of apples, after 2 hours, the pot was only maybe 3/4 full because of all that water that evaporated. And by the way, you don't want to keep it lidded because you want that moisture to disappear, or else you're going to have soggy pie, which could be a problem. So that's why we're also going to cook everything on the stove with the cornstarch, so that's going to thicken. Question?
That tip is great. My mom always made apple pie, did not do the pre-cooking in the kettle. She always had this air space or air pocket
Oh.
between top crust and the filling. That is perfect.
Because it's already cooked and the apples have already reduced, it's going to stay flat there, or nothing's going to move. So the day before, if you want to make your life simple, you could do the dough and cook your apples and get your filling all cooked, throw it in the fridge because you want everything cold. So the next day, take your, again, we talked about lining this with parchment paper. If you're using something like this, if you're not using something like that, you're using something like this, I would spray it with nonstick spray, roll out your dough, take your cold apple filling that's now done and been cooked, put it in here, roll out the top crust, put that on, crimp it, and then freeze it. Why in the world am I telling you to freeze it? I have found with this particular dough recipe and a lot of them, if it's not frozen, it hits the oven if it's like room temperature, like what we just did. If I tried to put that in the oven right now, it would go, and then you're basically going to be cleaning the inside of your oven. It's not a good day. So by freezing it, all that fat and water is going to be rock hard. So now we're going to jack up the oven to 425 with our stone if you have one, or if you're going to use a double sheet pan, whatever. Now it's going to try to set that crust on the outside so it doesn't go all over the place. Does that make sense? There's a method to the madness. So in the instructions on the next page, it says, preheat for 425 for 1 hour. I'm looking at number 8. And then you can put your egg wash on, and if you got some sugar in the raw or turbinado sugar, if you want to throw that on top. So you're going to bake it for 20 minutes, then turn the oven down to 375 and bake it till it looks good. So how long is that? So for example, last night, this pie, I baked it for 425 for 20 minutes, 375, set my timer for 1 hour. Nope, it's still blonde. Blonde meaning not even brown. Another 30 minutes. It's getting there. Another 10 minutes. Then once it looked like this, because the filling is already cooked and thickened, I don't need it to boil and I don't need it to do all that stuff that you read. It's all done. We did that already. So now you're basically just baking the pastry. So now, boy, I really wrapped this good, didn't I? Let's do it from down below here. There we go. Okay, so this is the result. Now we're going to see what the real deal is. You probably can't see when you come up to get some. It almost. Oh, would you? Yeah, this is a single serving. Yeah. When you look at the edges, it's actually puffed up a little bit, and that's because of the lamination, and that's also because of the baking powder. Now, knife and we'll get her to help with this. The other thing is you can cut some vents in here, but the vents are mainly for decoration at this point because all the steam has already escaped when we baked them. So by the way, it took about 2-ish hours to cook the filling on the stove. So if you want to grab these two little things, and I'll grab these two little things, and then we can go your way.
Okay. Wow, that looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sort of like making stock and cooking it down to make.
Exactly. You've taken care of it ahead of time to make it more flavorful.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, it's concentrated.
Another thing that you can kind of think of this technique is if anybody's ever made banana bread, and banana bread can be kind of, I almost use the word gummy, but wet and kind of gummy. So if you take your bananas, peel them, that helps. Put like your bananas in here, cover it with plastic wrap, stick it in the microwave for about 5 minutes. You will soon have very soft bananas and liquid on the bottom. Drain off the liquid, reduce it on the stove. Now you're getting really banana flavor, and it's not wet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, Suzanne, let's do it one more time. It's not a party until you start pulling out the whipped cream. All right, so basically, once your pie is frozen, by the way, it'll hold in your freezer however long. So like we were talking about Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving can be a little rough time, trying to get everything done. So maybe, I don't know, the beginning of November, you can get all your pies done. Now, obviously with a pecan pie, something like that, you may not, but if it's a fruit pie that you're going after or a pumpkin pie, you may want to do that later. But if you, and I know a lot of people like to do fruit pies for Thanksgiving, freeze them, stick them in the freezer, forget about them. And then the morning of or the day before, pull them out, you're ready to go. That's one thing off your checkoff list that you've already taken care of. Any other question? I'm sorry? No. The question is, do I defrost them before I bake them? Absolutely not. We bake them straight from frozen.
Oh, so you pre-make them, but you don't bake them?
Right.
Just pre-make them and freeze them?
Right. Yeah. So the filling is cooked. The pastry is not. It's in the freezer. So it's rock hard. I take it from the freezer, stick it right in the oven. Basically, yeah. If you've ever gotten a pie from Marie Callender or Sara Lee or any of those, a lot of them will say you can bake right from frozen, and that's basically what we're doing. Okay, so question?
Have you ever made a slab one without the top crust?
Oh, so you mean like an apple pie or? Yeah, you could. That's not a problem. Just don't put the top on it. So you could, so if you're, all right, so the question was, have you ever made a fruit pie without the top? Not a problem. Put your bottom in, put the filling in. You may want to wrap it in plastic wrap, throw it in the freezer, done. If you want to get fancy and you might want to do a lattice top, you could do that too. So no, at that point, it doesn't matter whether you have a top on it or not. This is mainly because I like crust. So, yeah. Question?
Have you ever tried covering your pies with tin foil and freezing them and baking them?
I've not tried that. So the question was if I ever tried covering the pies in tin foil, then freezing and baking them. I have not. And I know that there was something all the rage about some people were baking apple pies in a brown paper bag. That's big up north. I've not, yeah, I'm not, I was like, no, I'm a little nuts. But I haven't quite got there yet. This works, so I've been sticking with this. But no, I mean, that might be something to try. The thing is, if it's got foil on it, I'm just thinking the water that's in the dough and that's in the butter needs to evaporate. So if you were to have foil on it, I'm thinking it would trap it and it wouldn't be as crispy outside. It might be a little bit more, again, not gummy, but yeah, soggy. It just wouldn't be. But if you want to try it and report back next month.
I like your idea better.
So, question?
How come you didn't put any foil around the edges to prevent burning the edges?
Didn't have to. I rotate it. I keep rotating it in the oven. So put it in there for 20 minutes at 425. So then I'm like, okay, I'll set a timer for 60 minutes. So I give it, another 10 or 15 minutes, rotate it. I don't have a convection oven at home. I've got the $200 Hot Point special electric stove, no extra bells and whistles. So then 30 minutes later, I just rotate it. Another 30 minutes, rotate it. So it seems to bake evenly that way, okay. So, but if you have a convection oven and you got a fancy oven, you may actually have to put foil around the outside because it may cook faster. Every oven's different. Once you know your oven, where the hot spots are, where it's cooler, you just know that by messing with it, that's all. And make sure it's calibrated too, by the way. So just get you a little oven thermometer and stick in there and make sure if it says 425, you're getting 425. That's, I remember I would say if I could only have a couple of toys in the kitchen, it'd be the scale and it would be a digital thermometer. Because I even temp my bread. Anybody here make cinnamon rolls? No? How do you know when the cinnamon rolls are done? In the middle. Looks done to me. I take a digital thermometer, I stick it right through the center of the roll, and if it reads 195, it's done. Then you know the bread is actually done. So that's another trick that you can do, stuff like that. When I make bread, like loaf bread, same thing. I'll do my potato bread to like 200 degrees. Stick it, yep, it's done. So I know when I take it out of the bread pan, it doesn't go, it's sufficiently baked. So again, a good digital thermometer will definitely help you. It doesn't have to be something crazy expensive. It can be, you know, your $10 special at your local Walmart store, but it will definitely help you. Absolutely, that's what I would use, especially, so the question is, can you use a pizza stone? Yeah, and if you're doing these kinds of pies, a lot of them are round because they expect to put pizza on them. Put this right on there. Just go with metal, don't go with glass or ceramic, it might cause you a problem. But as long as you stick with metal, it would take something to make this come apart. But yeah, whatever you've got, that's definitely use it. Good? All right, so what we'll do is we'll get this cut up, we'll get this going, and you can try it.